On the dusty slope of Pine Ridge, the sun slowly descended, tinting the simple houses scattered across the hill with gold. The small town seemed asleep between mountains and tall pastures, as if time there had its own rhythm, always slower, always dragging like the stifling afternoons that announced summer rains. Martha, sitting in her rocking chair on the porch, observed the horizon with eyes that didn't see as well as they once did. In her early 80s, she always kept her grey hair in a loose bun and wore her faded floral dress, so familiar it seemed part of her silhouette. Harold must be coming back from the pasture, she murmured to herself, even knowing in some distant part of her consciousness that Harold had passed away almost a decade ago, leaving only checkered shirts in the closet and a silence that the battery-powered radio couldn't fill. The old brick house with crooked windows and burnished cement floors kept memories that Martha couldn't always reach. On the walls, yellowed photographs showed moments she no longer fully recognized, familiar faces she sometimes confused, names that escaped like water between fingers. The phone rang inside the house, waking her from her scattered thoughts. Martha stood up with difficulty, supporting herself on the doorframe. "Hello?" Her voice sounded hesitant. "Mom, it's Emily. How are you?" Martha smiled at hearing the voice, even though she didn't immediately associate the name with the person. "I'm fine, my dear, waiting for your father to come back from work." There was silence on the other end of the line. Emily, in the big city 300 miles away, gripped the phone tighter. "Mom, Dad." She hesitated. "He's not with us anymore. Remember?" "Oh, that's right," Martha replied with momentary lucidity. "Sometimes I forget. My head doesn't help much anymore." The conversation continued as usual, Emily in a hurry, promising to visit soon, Martha asking about her sister, Sarah, who rarely called, both knowing that the promises of visits took time to materialize. After hanging up, Martha returned to the porch, but something made her stop halfway. In the hallway there was an old mirror with a dark frame. The reflected image surprised her. Who was that lady with a face marked by time? For a moment, she searched for the 20-year-old she once was, the girl who rode horseback through the fields of Pine Ridge, with her hair loose in the wind. "I'm going crazy," she whispered to herself, trying to organize thoughts that shuffled like cards in an old deck. In the kitchen, the wall clock marked 5:30 in the afternoon. It was time to feed the chickens, she thought, even though she hadn't had any for years. She took a handful of corn stored in a tin and walked to the yard of packed earth where weeds grew freely. Upon reaching the small wooden gate, something made her stop, a distant sound, like hooves beating on the dirt road. Martha narrowed her eyes toward the curve in the path, feeling her heart race without knowing exactly why. That's when she saw it, a chestnut horse with coat darkened by mud, disheveled mane standing a few meters from the gate, looking directly at her with eyes that seemed to carry stories as old as hers. Galloper, the name escaped her lips, before she could even think, coming from somewhere deep in her memory. The horse tilted its head slightly, as if responding to the call. Martha felt a sudden clarity, as if a window had been opened in her foggy mind. Without hesitation, she threw the corn on the ground near the gate and went to fetch water. When she returned with a bucket. The animal was still there, watching her with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. Martha placed the water next to the corn and stepped back a few paces. "Come, Galloper, you can come," she called with a gentle voice she hadn't used in a long time. The chestnut horse approached cautiously, first drinking the water, then accepting the corn. As she watched it, Martha felt tears in her eyes without knowing exactly why. It was as if a piece of her history, which she thought lost forever, had suddenly returned. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Let us know which city you're watching from. We continue. The next day, Martha woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in months, she had a clear purpose when opening her eyes, to check if the horse would return. She dressed with care, choosing a less faded dress and even pinning a flower in her hair, a gesture she hadn't made in years. "Today is visiting day," she said to Harold's portrait on the dresser, as if he could hear her secrets. In the kitchen, she prepared strong coffee and set aside some ears of corn that she kept for special occasions. A feeling of pleasant anticipation took hold of her, something she had forgotten she could feel. Mrs. Henderson, the neighbor, noticed the unusual movement and approached the yard. "You're all dressed up today, Martha. Expecting someone?" she asked, resting her arms on the low fence that separated the properties. "Yes, I am," she replied with a mysterious smile. "An old friend." "Did someone from your family come? Is Emily here?" "No, it's not people, it's—" She hesitated, fearing the neighbor would think her crazy. "It's just a visitor." Mrs. Henderson frowned, concerned. She knew well her friend's memory lapses and increasingly frequent confusion. "Would you like me to stay with you today? I could bring some cornbread." "No need, Helen. I'm fine. I just want to be alone for a while." The neighbor walked away, but not before casting a worried look at her friend. Out on the street she met Mr. Johnson, the mailman. "That Martha is getting more lost every day," she commented. "Got all dressed up to receive a visitor, but it's no one from her family. Those daughters of hers should visit more often." Meanwhile, Martha spent the day between moments of lucidity and confusion. Sometimes she tidied the yard to receive the mysterious visitor. Sometimes she forgot what she was doing and found herself talking to people who weren't there. But something remained constant: the expectation of the horse's return. When the sun began to set, tinting the sky orange, Martha sat in the porch chair, her eyes fixed on the curve in the road. And then, as if answering a silent call, the chestnut horse appeared, majestic despite its precarious condition. "You came," she exclaimed, feeling her heart race. The horse stopped a few meters away, its eyes fixed on her. Martha calmly got up and went to fetch the corn and water she had prepared. She placed everything near the gate and stepped back, letting the animal approach of its own accord. "You know, Galloper, you remind me of someone," she said, watching it eat. "My father had a horse like you when I was a girl." And then, like a floodgate opening, the memories began to flow. Martha saw herself as a child again, mounted on the back of her father's horse, galloping through the fields of Pine Ridge. She remembered the wind on her face, the laughter, the smell of wet earth after the rain. "Dad took me everywhere on that horse," she continued, her voice clearer, her eyes bright. "We called him Galloper because he was smaller than the other horses in the pasture, but ran like no other." The chestnut horse raised its head, as if listening attentively. Martha approached slowly, and to her surprise, the animal allowed her to touch its neck. The rough texture of the dirty coat brought more memories to the surface. "On my graduation day, Dad took me on it all the way to school," she laughed, caressing the tangled mane. "Imagine the scandal. The teacher nearly had a fit when she saw me arriving like that." For hours, Martha spoke non-stop, unraveling stories she thought forgotten. She told about her first kiss with Harold, about the birth of her daughters, about her father's death. Events that often became confused in her mind now seemed clearer, as if the horse's presence served as an anchor for her memories. When night fell completely, the chestnut horse moved away, reluctantly. Martha didn't try to stop it. "Come back. Tomorrow, Galloper. I have more stories to tell." That night, for the first time in a long time, Martha slept without nightmares. In her dreams, she rode freely, young again, the wind whipping her face, free from the shackles that age and disease had imposed. In Chicago, Emily looked out the window of her office on the 20th floor, observing the city covered by a veil of pollution. The landline on her desk rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Emily Raymond," she answered in a professional voice. "Emily? It's Mrs. Henderson, your mother's neighbor in Pine Ridge." Emily's heart accelerated. Unexpected calls from the countryside rarely brought good news. "Did something happen to my mother?" she asked, gripping the phone tightly. "I don't know how to explain it properly. Your mother is different. She's been getting dressed up every day, talking to herself in the yard. Yesterday I saw a horse on her property, a big wild animal. I'm afraid something might happen." "A horse?" Emily frowned, confused. "Where? Did a horse come from?" "Nobody knows. Must be some animal that escaped from a farm. But your mother talks to it like it's a person, calls it Galloper, says it's an old friend." Emily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of guilt grow. It had been months since she had visited her mother, contenting herself with quick calls and presents sent by mail. The last time she had been in Pine Ridge, she had already noticed the signs of Alzheimer's advancing, the confusion, the memory lapses, the stories repeated without realizing. "Thank you for letting me know, Mrs. Henderson. I'll take care of this." After hanging up, Emily tried to contact her sister, Sarah, who had been living in England for almost a decade. As Haldy expected, it went to voicemail. "Sarah, Mom isn't well. They called from Pine Ridge saying She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I think she's getting worse. There's a horse in her yard, can you imagine? I'll need to go there." "If you could call me back." Emily knew she probably wouldn't get a response. The relationship between Sarah and their mother had always been complicated, marked by silences and unresolved hurts. Since moving to England, Sarah rarely spoke about the family, as if trying to erase that part of her life. The next day, Emily requested leave from work and hit the road toward Pine Ridge. During the 5-hour journey, her mind buzzed with worries and memories. She remembered childhood in the village, afternoons running through the fields. Her mother always strong, sewing for others, tending the garden, running the house with energy that seemed inexhaustible. How had that vibrant woman transformed into the fragile and confused lady who now called a wild horse a friend? Upon arriving in Pine Ridge, the sun was already setting. The village remained the same. Simple houses scattered across the slope, time seeming to move more slowly. Emily drove slowly along the dirt road, recognizing each curve, each tree, each gate. When she finally reached her mother's house, what she saw left her paralyzed. In the yard, under the orange light of dusk, Martha was humming while tying a colorful cloth around the neck of an immense brown horse. The animal, although wild, remained strangely quiet, as if appreciating the attention. "Mom," called Emily, still inside the car, unable to believe the scene. Martha turned, her eyes shining in a way Emily hadn't seen in years. "Look who's here, Galloper." "It's my girl," she exclaimed, waving animatedly. Emily got out of the car, hesitant, keeping her distance from the animal. "Mom, what's this all about? Where did this horse come from?" "He found me," Martha replied with simplicity. "He's been visiting me every day. He's an old friend." "You know this animal?" asked Emily, approaching cautiously. "Of course I know him. It's Galloper, my father's horse. Don't you remember him?" Emily felt a tightness in her chest. Her grandfather had passed before she was even born. Any horse he might have owned, certainly, wouldn't be alive so many decades later. "Mom, Grandpa's horse yacht. It can't be the same one." Martha looked at her with impatience, like in the old days when she thought her daughters were being stubborn. "I know it seems strange, but it is him. Just look how he recognizes me. Since he arrived, I've been remembering so many things. Stories I had forgotten. People, places." The horse whinnied softly, as if confirming the story. Emily observed the animal more carefully. It was large, thin, with signs of old injuries on its legs. Clearly a wild animal, perhaps lost from some nearby farm. "You can't keep a wild horse, Mom. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" Martha laughed, caressing the animal's neck. "Galloper would never hurt me. He's my friend, the only one who doesn't abandon me." The words hit Emily like a slap. The guilt, which she already carried, became even heavier. "Mom, I haven't abandoned you. I have a life, a job." "I know, dear," Martha interrupted, her tone softening. "I'm not blaming you. That's just how it is. Life takes you far away, and I stay here with my memories, and now with Galloper." Night fell in Pine Ridge, bringing with it the characteristic silence of the countryside. In Martha's house, the atmosphere was tense. Emily had prepared a simple dinner, rice, beans, and an omelette, and watched her mother eating with an appetite she hadn't shown in a long time. "You seem better," she commented, trying to ease the tension. "It's Galloper," Martha replied, smiling between bites. "He brought life back to this house." Emily sighed, not knowing how to approach the subject, how to explain to her mother that this situation was unsustainable. A wild horse in the yard of an 80-year-old woman with Alzheimer's was a recipe for disaster. "Mom, we need to talk about the horse," she finally said, setting her fork aside. Galloper, Martha corrected, as if the name was important. Yes, Galloper, you can't keep him here, it's not safe. Why not? Martha's eyes acquired a stubborn gleam that Emily knew well. Because it's a wild animal. It could hurt you or itself. It needs veterinary care, a proper place. Martha shook her head resolute. He's fine here with me. He would never hurt me. You can't guarantee that. Besides, it's illegal to keep a wild animal in captivity. I'm not keeping anyone in captivity, Martha protested, raising her voice. He comes because he wants to. He leaves every night and returns the next day. He's free to come and go. Emily took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. As a doctor, she knew that directly confronting people with Alzheimer's often only made the situation worse. I understand, Mom, but what if someone sees him and reports it? The wildlife officers could take him away. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Nobody is going to take him. He's my friend, the only one who keeps me company. Since your father passed, since you all moved away, I stay here alone with my memories that escape. Galloper brings them back. Emily felt her heart tighten. She knew her mother suffered from loneliness, but only now did she realize the depth of that feeling. Between guilt and concern, she opted to postpone the discussion. Let's go to bed, Mom. We'll talk more tomorrow. The next morning, Emily woke up early and found the house empty. Concerned, she went to the yard and saw her mother sitting on a rustic little bench, combing the horse's mane with a wooden comb. The animal, surprisingly docile, kept its head low, as if appreciating the affection. Good morning, Mom, she said, approaching cautiously. Morning, Martha replied, radiant. Look how handsome Galloper is today. I gave him a bath yesterday before bed. Emily looked at the animal with different eyes. Indeed, it was cleaner, the brown coat shining in the sun. Still, it was noticeable that it was a mistreated horse with scars and signs of malnutrition. You bathed him? Alone? Of course. I've been doing that every day since he appeared. At first he wouldn't let me, but now he even likes it. Emily didn't know whether to be impressed with her mother's capability or terrified by the risk she was taking. How could an elderly woman who sometimes had difficulty remembering her own name manage to bathe a wild horse? Mom, I need to make some calls. I'll go inside, okay? Martha nodded without taking her eyes off the animal. Emily went back inside and picked up the phone. First, she called Dr. Patterson, the local veterinarian, explaining the situation. Then she called the animal control. Lastly, she contacted the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, which was in the neighboring town. When she finished the calls, she felt exhausted. All the institutions had given the same response. The animal needed to be removed and evaluated. If it was healthy, it would be released back into its natural habitat. Otherwise, it would stay in rehabilitation until it could be reintroduced. Emily knew it would be a blow to her mother, but she needed to think about everyone's well-being. She scheduled the veterinarian's visit for the next day. At noon, when she was preparing lunch, she heard a noise in the yard. She ran outside and found Martha fallen with a small cut on her forehead. The horse was at a distance, agitated. Mom, what happened? She asked, helping her to stand. I tripped over the bucket, Martha replied, confused. It's nothing. You sure the horse didn't do anything? Of course not, Martha protested, indignant. Galloper would never hurt me. On the contrary, he got agitated because he saw me fall. Emily cleaned her mother's wound, more worried than ever. Later, when Martha was sleeping, she called the clinic where she worked in Chicago and asked for a few more days off. She needed to resolve this situation once and for all. At night, sitting on the porch watching the stars, she heard footsteps on the road. A car was approaching. When the headlights illuminated the entrance gate, she recognized the vehicle, a small red Ford that belonged to her sister, Sarah. I don't believe it, she murmured to herself, standing up. Sarah got out of the car, her face tired from the long journey. The two sisters looked at each other for a moment, an abyss of unspoken words between them. I got your message, Sarah finally said. I came to see what's happening. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. The sisters' embrace was quick, almost formal. 8 years of distance had built a wall between them, made of silences and unexpressed resentments. Emily helped her sister with her suitcase while entering the house. "Is Mom sleeping?" Sarah asked in a low voice, looking around as if she were a stranger in the house where she grew up. "Yes, she usually sleeps early now," Emily replied, leading her sister to the kitchen. "Would you like some coffee? You must be tired from the trip." Sarah nodded, settling at the wooden table. Her gaze swept over the environment, noticing small changes: the faded curtains, the peeling paint, the wear that seemed to reflect her mother's mental state. "How is she really?" she finally asked, accepting the cup Emily offered her. "Worse than the last time you saw her. The memory lapses are more frequent. Sometimes she doesn't recognize me, thinks I'm some distant cousin. Other times she's perfectly lucid, but that's becoming increasingly rare. And this horse story, I thought, it was some delusion when you left the message." Emily sighed, sitting across from her. "Sister, it's real. A wild horse appeared in the yard a few weeks ago. Mom believes it's Grandpa's horse, the one from the stories she used to tell, remember?" "Galloper," Sarah murmured, a slight smile on her lips. She was always talking about that horse. Said it was the fastest in the whole region, that Grandpa could only ride it because they had a special bond. Exactly. She thinks this horse is the same one. She talks to it, bathes it, puts decorations on it. I've never seen her so animated since Dad passed. But that's dangerous. A wild horse can be unpredictable, especially around an elderly person. "I know," Emily agreed, rubbing her tired eyes. "I've already contacted the veterinarian and the rehabilitation center. They're coming tomorrow to evaluate the animal." "And have you told her?" "Not yet. I don't know how." A heavy silence settled between them. Sarah stared at her cup, lost in thought. "All these years, have you been here? Visiting her?" she asked abruptly. "When I can," Emily replied, feeling defensive. "I come every 2 or 3 months. I call every week. And you, 8 years without setting foot in Pine Ridge? You know why I distance myself." "No, Sarah, I don't know. You never explained. You simply left here after that argument and practically cut contact. And it wasn't even that serious of a fight." Sarah stood up, leaving her cup in the sink. "I don't want to discuss this now. I'm exhausted from the trip." "It's always like this with you." Emily shook her head, frustrated. "You run from any confrontation, any difficult conversation. And you were always the perfect daughter, weren't you? The brilliant doctor, the one who never disappoints her." A noise interrupted the discussion. Martha was standing in the kitchen doorway, her eyes wide, staring at Sarah as if seeing a ghost. "Sarah, is it really you?" she asked with a trembling voice. For a moment the sisters feared it was just another lapse, that their mother didn't really recognize her younger daughter. But Martha approached, arms extended, and hugged Sarah tightly. "My girl, you've come. Home." Sarah, surprised by the recognition and the strength of that embrace, let the tears come. 8 years of distance seemed to dissolve in that moment of connection. "I came to see you, Mom," she said, her voice choked. "I've missed you." Martha stepped back a little, holding her daughter's face between her wrinkled hands. "You're beautiful. Just like your grandmother when she was young." The three sat at the table, and for a brief moment they seemed like a normal family again. Martha, more awake than usual at that hour, was animatedly telling about Galloper, about how he visited her every day, about the stories they shared. "Tomorrow you'll meet him, Sarah. You'll love him. He's so intelligent, so sweet." Sarah looked at Emily, who shook her head slightly, silently asking that she not contradict their mother. It wasn't the time to talk about removing the animal. When Martha finally went back to bed, the sisters remained in the kitchen, the air heavy with postponed conversations. "She seems happy," Sarah commented, "more lucid than I expected." "It's the horse," Emily explained. "Since it appeared, Mom has had more moments of clarity. It's as if its presence awakens something in her. And yet you still want to take it away. It's not a matter of wanting, Sarah. It's a matter of safety, and it's the law. We can't keep a wild animal here." "But if it's helping, and what? If she gets hurt, What if the horse becomes aggressive? Who will take responsibility? You from across the ocean, me working 60 hours a week in Chicago. Sarah didn't answer. Deep down, she knew her sister was right, however painful it was to admit. Let's go to sleep, Emily suggested, softening her tone. Tomorrow we'll see what the veterinarian says. Morning arrived in Pine Ridge with an intensely blue sky and the singing of birds. Sarah woke up early, her eyes still heavy with sleep. For a moment she felt disoriented as she recognized her childhood bedroom, the same yellowed walls, the same simple furniture, the same smell of old wood. She got up and went to the window. In the yard, she saw something that left her speechless. Her mother, already awake, animatedly talking with a majestic brown horse. It wasn't as she had imagined, a scary and aggressive animal. On the contrary, it seemed gentle, almost protective as Martha caressed its neck. I don't believe it, she murmured to herself, quickly getting dressed. When she went out to the yard, Martha smiled radiantly. Look, Sarah, come meet Galloper. Sarah approached cautiously, maintaining a safe distance. Good morning, Mum. Is this the horse you talked about? Yes, isn't he beautiful? Look how strong he is today. I think he liked the oats I gave him yesterday. The animal observed Sarah with calm and attentive eyes, showing no sign of stress or aggression. Do you feed him every day? She asked, surprised by the evident bond between the two. Of course, he likes corn, oats, carrots. This morning I even brought a little sugar for him. He's mischievous like a child, you know. He keeps searching my hands, sniffing. There was a youthful joy in Martha's face, a sparkle in her eyes that Sarah hadn't seen in years. Despite all apprehension, she couldn't help but smile. Emily joined them shortly after, bringing coffee on a tray. I see you've already met Galloper, she commented, handing a cup to her mother and another to her sister. It's impressive, Sarah admitted. I've never seen such a tame wild horse. He's not wild, Martha protested. He's family. The sisters exchanged glances, but didn't contradict their mother. As they drank coffee, Martha told stories from childhood, some that the daughters had never heard before, others they knew by heart. The most surprising thing was the clarity with which she remembered the details, names, dates, places, when just weeks before she could barely remember what she had eaten for lunch. The sound of a car approaching interrupted the conversation. It was a white pickup truck with the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center logo. Emily felt a knot in her stomach. Who is it? Martha asked, frowning. It's the veterinarian, Mom, Emily replied, trying to sound casual. Remember I mentioned yesterday? He came to take a look at Galloper. Why, he's not sick. It's just a routine check to ensure he's healthy. Dr. Patterson, a tall man with a graying beard, approached accompanied by two assistants. He greeted everyone with a gentle smile, but his professional gaze was already evaluating the animal from a distance. Mrs. Raymond, how are you? I see you have an interesting visitor. It's Galloper, Doctor. You'll take good care of him, won't you? Of course I will, the veterinarian assured, slowly approaching the horse. We're just going to check how he's doing. To everyone's surprise, the horse allowed the veterinarian to examine it without resistance. Dr. Patterson checked the teeth, eyes, legs, making notes on a clipboard. It's an interesting specimen, he commented. It has characteristics of a wild horse, but also of domesticated animals, probably descendant of horses that escaped from farms generations ago. Is he okay? Martha asked, anxious. He has some old injuries on his legs, is a bit malnourished, but nothing serious. The veterinarian turned to Emily and Sarah. Can we talk in private? The sisters followed the doctor to the porch, leaving Martha with the horse. Ladies, I need to be honest. This animal cannot remain here. It's a wild horse, and despite the apparent docility, it represents a risk. Additionally, the legislation is clear regarding the keeping of wild animals. We understand, Doctor, Emily replied, but you saw how my mother is connected to him. Yes, I did, and it's truly extraordinary. I've never witnessed such a bond between a wild animal and a human without training. However, it doesn't change the facts. The animal needs to be taken to the center, where it will receive the necessary care. And then, Sarah asked, her voice trembling. If it's completely healthy, it will be reintegrated into nature. The sisters exchanged distressed looks. They knew it was the right thing to do, but they feared the emotional impact on their mother. When would the removal be? Emily asked. The assistants are ready to do it today. We have a trailer adapted for safe transport. Today? Sarah's eyes widened. So quickly? The sooner the better, for the animal and for everyone involved. The conversation was interrupted by a scream. Martha was at the fence clinging to the horse's neck, while the assistants tried to approach with a containment net. "No, you won't take him. He's mine," she screamed, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. Emily and Sarah ran to her. The horse, sensing the agitation, whinnied nervously, stamping its hooves on the ground. "Mom, please, step away, it's dangerous," Emily implored, trying to pull her. "I won't let them take him. You don't understand." Martha struggled, surprisingly, strong for her age. "He helps me remember. When he's here, I remember everything. If he goes away, I'll get lost again." The scene in Martha's yard was chaotic. The elderly woman was clinging to the horse's neck, while the veterinarian's assistants tried to approach with nets and containment equipment. The animal, previously so calm, now whinnied nervously, sensing the danger. "Stop!" Sarah suddenly shouted, positioning herself between the men and her mother. "You can't do it like this." Dr. Patterson made a gesture for his assistants to back off. Emily took advantage of the moment to approach her mother, speaking in a low, reassuring voice. "Mom, it's okay, no one is going to do anything now. Let's talk first, all right?" Martha, trembling still, embracing the animal's neck, looked at her daughter with tearful eyes. "They want to take him away, Emily. Don't let them." "No one is taking anyone now," Emily assured, extending her hand. "Let's go inside, have some tea, and talk about this." Calmly. After a few tense moments, Martha finally moved away from the horse, which seemed to calm down immediately. Emily and Sarah led their mother inside, while Dr. Patterson and his assistants remained in the yard, observing the animal from a distance. In the kitchen, Sarah prepared chamomile tea while Emily sat next to her mother, holding her trembling hands. "Mom, I understand that you've created a bond with Galloper, but we need to think about his well-being too." "He's fine here with me," Martha protested. "I give him food, water, affection. What more does he need?" Emily exchanged a look with Sarah, seeking support. The younger sister approached, placing the cups on the table. "Mom, horses need space to run, specialized care. You live alone, sometimes have difficulty caring for yourself." "I know I'm old and my head doesn't help anymore," Martha interrupted with surprising lucidity. "I know sometimes I forget things, confuse people, but since Galloper arrived, I've been feeling better. It's as if he brings back parts of me that were getting lost." The sisters looked at each other again, touched by their mother's sincerity. "What do you mean by that?" Emily asked gently. "When he's around, I can remember things. From my childhood, my father, my youth, stories I had forgotten come back as if they had never left. It's like—" Martha searched for the words. "Like he's an anchor for my memories." From outside, they heard the horses whinny. Martha smiled as if understanding what he was saying. "He's calling. Wants to know if I'm okay." Sarah abruptly stood up and went to the window. The horse was standing near the fence, its eyes fixed on the house, as if really waiting for Martha. "It's incredible," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. "Dr. Patterson said he's never seen anything like it," Emily commented. "Such a bond between a wild animal and a human." Martha took a sip of tea, her hand steadier now. "It's not just any animal, it's Galloper." "Mum?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "You know it can't be the same horse from Grandpa's stories, right? That horse lived more than 70 years ago." To the daughter's surprise, Martha laughed softly. "I know that, dear. I'm not that confused. Of course it's not the same animal, but it has the same spirit, the same free soul, the same connection with me, as if it were a gift from your grandfather, a way to remind me who I am, where I came from." Emily felt her eyes water. She had never imagined that her mother, even with advancing Alzheimer's, could have moments of such clarity and wisdom. "What will we do then?" Sarah asked, returning to the table. "The veterinarian is waiting for an answer." "I have an idea," said Emily after a few seconds of reflection. Let's propose a different arrangement. When the three went out to the yard again, Dr. Patterson awaited them with a worried expression. Dr. Emily, we need to make a decision. I can't keep my assistants waiting all day. I understand, Doctor. And we've come to a proposal. Emily straightened her shoulders, assuming her professional tone. You yourself said you've never seen such a bond between a wild animal and a human. It's something that deserves to be studied. Don't you agree? The veterinarian frowned, intrigued. What are you suggesting exactly? A case study. Regular monitoring of the animal right here without removing it. Periodic evaluations, documentation of behavior, interaction, impact on my mother's mental health. This is highly irregular. Irregular, yes. Impossible, no, Emily argued. You have the authority to classify this as a special case of scientific study. We can formalize everything, with reports, monitoring by professionals. My sister will stay in Pine Ridge for a while, and I'll come more frequently. Sarah looked surprised at her sister, but quickly nodded, confirming the information. Yes, I'll stay. I can work remotely from England. Dr. Patterson seemed to ponder the proposal, his gaze alternating between the horse, which was now grazing peacefully, and Martha, who watched him with hope in her eyes. It would be an unprecedented case, he murmured, scratching his greying beard. I would have to consult the centre's board. Please, Doctor. Martha stepped forward, her voice firm. I know it seems crazy, but this horse is my last chance to keep what I still have left in here. She pointed to her own head. When he's around, I remember who I am. 6 months passed since that tense afternoon in Martha's yard. Autumn had arrived in Pine Ridge, painting the mountains with amber and golden tones. The corner house, once silent and almost forgotten, now pulsed with renewed life. On the freshly painted porch, Martha gently rocked in her chair, watching the horse grazing in the small enclosure built at the back of the property. It was no longer an improvised space. Now there was a simple but adequate shelter, a trough for water and food, and a secure fence that ensured the animal had space to move freely, but without being able to wander far. Do you think he's happy here? Sarah asked, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. Martha smiled, accepting the hot beverage. Look at him, dear. He's at peace. He comes when I call, stays close to me when I need him, and has freedom to run when he wants. What more can one ask of life? The months had brought changes for everyone. Dr. Patterson, initially skeptical, had become a regular visitor to the house. What had begun as an exceptional case study had transformed into a research project on the therapeutic effects of interaction between animals and Alzheimer's patients. Weekly, the veterinarian brought students and researchers to document the unusual interaction. The horse, now officially named Galloper, was transformed. His coat shone with health, the old wounds had healed, and he had gained weight. He still maintained his wild nature, but showed surprising docility when Martha was nearby. Dr. Patterson said he's never seen a horse learn so quickly, Sarah commented, sitting next to her mother. He's impressed with how Galloper responds to your commands. They're not commands, they're conversations, Martha corrected with an enigmatic smile. We converse with our eyes, with our hearts. Sarah observed her mother with tenderness. The Alzheimer's hadn't disappeared, of course. There were still difficult days, moments of confusion, questions repeated countless times, but there was also a stability that didn't exist before, as if the horse's presence really helped anchor Martha to the present. The front door opened, and Emily came out carrying a box. I found more photographs in the hallway closet, she announced, placing the box between them. Look what I found! She pulled out an old black and white photograph showing a young man mounted on a small but vigorous-looking horse. It's Grandpa, Sarah exclaimed, leaning over to see better. And Galloper, Martha added, touching the photo with trembling fingers. The original. The photo passed from hand to hand, while Martha told once again the story of the horse her father had bought from travelling gypsies, a small animal that everyone judged to be weak, but which revealed itself to be the fastest and most loyal in the region. I've never seen this photo before, Emily commented, intrigued. It was kept in your grandfather's wooden box, Martha explained. The one he made by hand, remember? I kept it on top of the wardrobe. It must have appeared when you started reorganizing the house. The mention of reorganization made the sisters exchange a knowing look. In recent months, Pine Ridge had become home to both of them again. Sarah, who had initially planned to stay just a few weeks, ended up indefinitely postponing her return to England. She had rented a house in the village and worked remotely as a translator, spending most of her free time with her mother. Emily, in turn, had reduced her hours at the hospital in Chicago and accepted a consulting position at the local health center. 2 hours away from the capital, she could now divide her time between her career and family, spending 3 days a week in Pine Ridge. Dr. Helena called this morning, Emily commented, referring to the neurologist who now monitored Martha. She wants to include Mom's case in a scientific publication on alternative therapies for Alzheimer's. Martha chuckled softly. Became a lab guinea pig in my old age. Who would have thought? Do you mind? Sarah asked, concerned. Of course. Not. If my story with Galloper can help other people, I'll be happy. A soft whinny drew the attention of all three. The horse had approached the fence, as if sensing they were talking about him. Martha stood up and walked toward him with slow but steady steps. Naturally, the animal lowered its head, allowing her to caress its muzzle. He knew I needed him, Martha said without turning, her voice laden with emotion. And you knew too. The daughters approached, forming a circle around the horse. Emily, always the more rational one, was still surprised by the transformation that animal had brought to their lives. It wasn't just Martha's health that had improved, it was the entire family that had found a new balance. I think we all needed each other, Sarah philosophized, the more sentimental of the two. We just took time to realize it. Well, I think I deserve some credit, Emily joked. Not every doctor could convince authorities to allow a wild horse in the yard of an Alzheimer's patient. The three laughed, and the sound of their laughter blended with Galloper's cheerful whinny, creating a symphony that seemed to echo through the mountains of Pine Ridge. Later, when the sun began to set, Martha sat again in her rocking chair. Her daughters had gone to the grocery store to buy ingredients for dinner, and she was enjoying the moment of solitude to converse with her memories. You brought my girls back to me, she murmured, looking at the horse resting in the enclosure. You brought me back too. The future was still uncertain. Martha knew in her moments of greatest lucidity that the disease hadn't disappeared. Eventually the memories would escape again, like water running between her fingers. But now there were anchors to hold her, the horse that had mysteriously appeared in her yard, the daughters who had rediscovered the way home, and the stories that were now told and retold, recorded not only in her fragile mind, but in the hearts of those she loved. On the horizon, the first stars began to dot the sky. Martha closed her eyes, feeling the gentle mountain breeze caress her face. For the first time in many years, she didn't fear tomorrow. The most important memories, after all, were those that remained not only in the mind, but in the heart, and those not even Alzheimer's could erase. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Let us know which city you're watching from.